This is a crazy, crazy story. This is from the Electronic Frontier Foundation. I used to be a big fan of them, but I think there's a lot of people who work there who are identitarian, and that kind of freaks me out. I've actually donated to them many times in the past because they defend hackers who have been falsely accused and things like that. Here's a story from today. Washington Post tries to take down parody site announcing Trump's resignation. This is a huge free speech issue. There's a parody site that looks at the Washington Post announcing Trump's resignation, and parody is protected. If you were in Washington, D.C. last week, you had a chance to be one of the lucky recipients of a parody newspaper spoofing the Washington Post and crowing about the unprecedented flight of Donald Trump from the Oval Office as he abandoned the presidency. The spoof, created by the activist group The Yes Men, who are hilarious, is also visible on the website democracyawakensinaction.org. The Washington Post lawyers were not amused, calling the parody an act of trademark infringement and raising copyright threats. We have responded to explain why the parody is protected by the First Amendment and fair use law, which I'm going to open up. Dated May 1st, the parody features a series of increasingly unlikely articles, including a mea culpa by the media for Trump's rise to power, and a story pointing out that the paper's date is several months in the future, in case the reader missed it. The fictional timeline of the paper credits protests like the Women's March with Trump's abdication, and includes a link to an action guide for people who want to pursue progressive causes. As we explained in our response letter, numerous appeals courts have held that political speech is strongly protected from trademark claims. Trademark law is fundamentally about protecting members of the public from making mistaken purchasing decisions, believing they are buying one company's product when in fact they're buying another. It is not a general-purpose legal tool for policing language or even for preventing people from being confused about what a company's political stances are. And neither is copyright law. The Washington Post is free to set the record straight by distancing itself from the spoof. It's not free to silence others' political speech. The parody paper and its call to action are staying online. This is epic and hilarious. This is the website. It looks just like the Washington Post. I can tell it's not the Washington Post for one reason. I am a member. I have a subscription to the Washington Post, and whenever I log in, it automatically shows my account. The fact that it says sign in, etc., and these other things shows that it's not real. But it looks almost identical. It doesn't, however, I don't believe so, link to the actual website for the Washington Post, although I could be wrong. It doesn't. It appears to just go back to the main page. It stays exactly where it is. And this is the front page from May 1st, 2019. Unprecedented. Ending crisis. Trump hastily departs from White House. And you have a bunch of fake stories. So it looks like none of these stories actually, nothing here actually links to their main website. And you've got a whole list of fake websites. One of the reasons, I'll tell you this, is why this is really interesting to me. There are many people who are shocked to learn I have a brother. And my brother is on YouTube with a YouTube account called Reactor. And one of the things he did in the past, I actually interviewed him about this, he made a parody website, a spoof of, I think it was NBC, claiming that he discovered a new strain of cannabis. He also claimed that he was dating Meghan Trainor, the pop star. For some reason, people uncritically believed this news was real, and High Times published it without fact-checking. Why? Because they claimed the story was too good to be true. Apparently, the news that there's a new strain of cannabis, Cannabis australis, was enough for them to say, we don't want to fact-check. And there's a few reasons why my brother did it. For one, it's just a funny hoax, but ultimately it shows you how the media doesn't care to fact-check. And he did this years ago. It went viral. It got something like 50,000 shares. It's legally protected. You're allowed to do it. So let's see what they say. I don't think any of the stories are actually real. Oh, they are. Whoa. So here's one of the fake stories. Celebrations break out worldwide as Trump era ends. When news of Donald Trump's abdication spread through Amsterdam, it literally stopped traffic as the normally reserved Dutch lay down their bicycles and strangers hug strangers. I want to point something else out that's really funny here. There are a lot of attempts at making memes that people think will offend Trump supporters, and the Trump supporters always laugh about it, right? So, like, somebody made an image of Trump at Thanksgiving. Like, it was a Thanksgiving painting, and every person has Trump's face, and it's like weird, funny faces where he's like making funny faces. And then there's like a Trump making a funny face serving up turkey. And the response I saw from Trump supporters was something like, you know, leftists made this meme to try and piss us off, but it's actually really funny. Like, whenever people, there was also one where it was Sarah Sanders, and her face was photoshopped onto the North Korean newswoman, as if to like imply that she's pumping out fake news like North Korea does. And the Trump supporters shared it because I thought it was funny. I look, when you have a sense of humor, whether you support Trump or not, I'm not a big fan of Trump, but ultimately I'm not like Trump deranged. You know, it's kind of just like, yeah, another president, another stupid day. But the media is nuts. But anyway, regardless, the point I'm making is I have a sense of humor about these things. When Trump won the presidency, I bust out laughing. Not because I was happy he won, because I thought the whole thing was ridiculous. A reality TV real estate mogul is the president of the U.S. People are screaming in the streets. Just at some point, you have to recognize the absurdity of the timeline we found ourselves in. When I see a story like this in the Washington Post, I find it to be completely and utterly hilarious. The Yes Men, I think, are fantastic, right? They've done these really amazing activist pieces, which are intelligent, which are well-crafted. Look at this. They've rebuilt the Washington Post front page, and they've written all of these fake stories. They did a lot of work. I wonder if they have a contact us on here. They have an About Us, careers, today's paper. One of the reasons I'm checking these links is because none of them actually link to the Washington Post. So anybody who comes to this site will stay on the site. And it also looks like many of these links don't actually go anywhere. So in that capacity, you could have done a little better. You could have done a little better. But here's what we got. It's from the EFF. Cease and desist letter. You've only made the story worse. Look, what's the point? What's the problem? I'm sorry. What are the Yes Men trying to accomplish by making an article that says Trump resigned? Now, I'll say this. The Yes Men have done things in the past that have highlighted serious issues. One of the most notorious things they've ever done was they pretended to be a representative from Dow Chemical and then claimed that Dow Chemical would liquidate Union Carbide to pay for the health care and pay the families of the Bhopal disaster. This was a hoax. But for some reason, the BBC had them on the air, and it caused a huge uproar. And then people said, what's the Bhopal disaster? They didn't know. The Yes Men were extremely effective at making sure people knew this disaster happened and people were hurt because of it. That was effective. What's the point of making a fake news website? Like, what's the point of making a fake Washington Post? It's funny, don't get me wrong, where they claim Trump is resigning in disgrace. I don't know. It's not really drawing attention to any core issues other than it's a funny fantasy for the left to imagine Trump's resigning. However, ultimately, I don't think that, I still think it's fantastic. I respect free speech, and parody should be protected for sure. The Washington Post, however, doesn't think so. They sent a cease and desist letter to the Yes Men. I'm just going to read, I don't know if there's a summary, I'm just going to read the first paragraph, or we'll read what we can. I'm the General Counsel of the Washington Post. We have read the press release, theyesmen.org, in which you have taken credit for the thousands of counterfeit copies of the Washington Post physically circulated today in Washington, D.C., and digitally distributed online, including at the websites democracyawakensinaction.com and mywashingtonpost.com. So they actually made a fake, wow, that's powerful. These counterfeit publications make unauthorized use of the Post's trademarks, including the name The Washington Post and the Post's distinctive masthead, both of which are protected by federal trademark registrations and by federal and state law. So they say the Post recognizes there are important First Amendment protections for parody and satire. However, if it is successful parody, then the ordinary observer can perceive the defendant is not connected in any way to the owner of the trademark, the target trademark. A non-infringing parody is merely amusing, not confusing. Here, there is substantial likelihood of confusion between your counterfeit publications and the Post for many reasons, including that neither your counterfeit publication nor the counterfeit websites clearly state they are fakes, parodies, or satire, and two, your counterfeit online publications included works linking to legitimate content on the real Post website, which further confuses readers by making them think that they are on the actual operable Post website. This is huge, huge, huge news. And the EFF asserting the defense of the Yes Men now opens the doors for other parody-type fake websites. You can literally make, I guess this was always the case, but you can literally make a fake version of the New York Times with fake news linking to the New York Times, and it's protected parody. So it looks like we have an official statement from the EFF. They've redacted some of these things. Dear Mr. Blank, I represent the Yes Men in connection with the above-listed domain name and related actions on January 16, 2019. I have reviewed your letter demanding that the site be shut down and all distribution, all physical copies of the spoof newspaper end. We are frankly disappointed that the Washington Post has chosen to take this approach. Given the content of the site and the physical paper, and the ample publicity the spoof has generated, it is difficult to imagine that any member of the public would be confused. Moreover, given the Washington Post's long history of defending free speech and fair use, We had hoped that your paper would recognize the spoof site is entirely legal critical speech. They go on to claim many things they've already done in the past. So it looks like if you want to make a fake version of the Washington Post with fake stories on it that could be confusing, doesn't matter, so long as you're not selling it. Looks like that's protected. I do find it interesting. I'm not surprised the Washington Post tried to protect their copyright because the confusion can be bad for them in the long run, but it definitely seems like the EFF has cited enough to make it open season for anyone who wants to spoof the mainstream media in a rather egregious way. But there you have it. I don't know. Something not related to the MAGA Kids incident I thought would be fun to talk about, so thanks for hanging out. I'll have more videos on the main channel tomorrow at 4 p.m. Probably something's going to happen with MAGA Kids, because this story won't die. But I'll see you then. Thanks for hanging out.